Hello, dear students. Today we are going to study the very first chapter of your book First Flight, A Letter to God, written by G.L. Fuentes. Before we talk about the chapter and understand it, let's know something about the author G.L. Fuentes. Gregorio Lopez y Fuentes was born on July 11, 1897 at Lanzarote in the Canary Islands. He first went to sea as a deck boy with his father at the age of 10. As a teenager, Fuentes worked on cargo ships that went out of the Canary Island to Trinidad and Puerto Rico. He also sailed to the Spanish parts of Valencia and Sevilla to South America. He migrated permanently to Cuba at the age of 22. Fuentes, a lifelong cigar smoker, died of cancer in 2002 at the age of 105 years. Let's have a look at the theme of the story, A Letter to God. This is the story of a hard-working farmer, Lencho. He is expecting a good harvest this year if it rains. The rain does come, bringing a brief happiness. However, a hailstorm follows the rain, destroying all his crops. Being deeply hurt, he looks toward God. Having unshaken faith in God, he writes a letter to him demanding 100 pesos. This amount is sufficient enough to sow his crop again. He posts the letter. The postman has a hearty laugh when he reads it and shows it to the postmaster. The postmaster, being a generous man, decides to help Lencho. He gives a part of his salary and collects money from the employees. He sends 70 pesos to Lencho. Lencho's happiness was momentary when he counts the money. God can't deceive him. It is the work of the post office employees. He writes another letter to God asking him not to send the remaining 30 pesos by mail, as post office employees are a bunch of crooks. So that was his request when he wrote letter for the second time, because he had no faith in these employees. So if you look at this lesson, A Letter to God, it shows us three things. It shows Lencho's firm faith in God. His faith is rewarded though the helpers are human beings. Secondly, it shows the utter innocence of the farmer Lencho. Thirdly, the lesson gives a message that sometimes even your generosity is not recognized. You may not get any credit for your generosity and kindness, but on the other hand, you may be misunderstood as a bunch of crooks. So Lencho was a farmer who lived on the crest of a low hill with his family. His house was the only one in the entire valley. His field needed a good harvest. He was looking towards the sky, hoping for a rain. During the meal, the rain began to fall. He went out to feel the rain on his body. Lencho was satisfied. The drops of rain were like the coins. The big drops were 10-cent pieces and the little ones were worth 5 each. Suddenly, a strong wind began to blow. Lencho was worried. Along with the rain came very large hailstones. They truly did resemble silver coins. The house, fields, and the hillside were covered with the white hails. Not a leaf remained on the trees. The corn was totally destroyed. So were the flowers. Lencho was sorrowful. They would have no corn that year, and it would result in starvation. That is why he became worried, thinking about the future and his family. Single hope, help from God. Lencho thought that there was only one hope. It was the help from God. The following Sunday, he wrote a letter to God. He wrote that if he did not help, his whole family would die. He needed 100 pesos in order to sow his field again and to live until the new crop came. He wrote to God on the envelope, placed a stamp on it, and dropped it into the mailbox. And his writing a letter to God shows his unshakable faith in God. When you have faith in someone or something, when you believe in something, this happens. One of the postmen who read the address laughed heartily and took it to the postmaster. The postmaster was quite a friendly and pleasant man. He too broke out laughing that, "Oh my God, someone has written a letter to God." But soon he became serious, seeing Lencho's faith in God. He realized that the sender of the letter had a great faith in God. He didn't want to shake the writer's faith in God, so he decided to answer the letter. It shows he was kind enough to help the man. The generous postmaster collected money from his employees. He himself gave a part of his salary. He put 70 pesos, all the money he could collect, in an envelope and sent it to Lencho by mail. Lencho had a firm and unshaken faith in God. He did expect help from God. When he received the money, he was not surprised. But his happiness was just for some moments. When he counted the money, he became very angry. He believed that God could never deceive him. Immediately, he wrote a second letter to God and posted it. The postmaster opened the letter eagerly. Lencho wrote that he received 70 pesos that had been sent by God. He requested God to send him the rest of the money. But yes, he also asked God not to send the money through the mail because the post office employees, according to him, were a bunch of crooks. They were not trustworthy. So that is why he requested God not to send the money through the mail. So that is how this chapter comes to an end. So that was all about the story, A Letter to God. I hope you all understood the chapter well. Now, after talking about the story, let's have a look at the title of the story. The title, A Letter to God, arouses the reader's interest as the idea of someone sending a letter to God is quite intriguing. The interest is sustained and even heightened on reading the story of how Lencho, the main character, appeals to God for monetary help through a letter. It is not so much about the actual letter, but the unquestioning faith of a naive man in the benign power of the Almighty. Hence, the title is suitable as it is the letter that reveals the character of Lencho and also makes the story unfold. Now, after talking about the title, let's have a look at the two most important characters of the story. The first one is Lencho. Lencho was a man of limited means and earned his living by farming his fields. He had an unshaken faith in God. He believed that God always helps the people with a clear conscience. Therefore, when he lost all hopes and he and his family were on the verge of starvation, he looked towards God for help. His deep faith in God even impressed the postmaster, who decided to help him. He was a little educated to write a letter. He showed his innocence by trying to have a correspondence with God directly. Another important character is postmaster, undoubtedly. The postmaster had all that is good in human thinking and behavior. He had thorough understanding of a sharp, sympathetic, and sensitive mind. He knew how the mind of a God-fearing rustic like Lencho works. He didn't want to break the deep faith of Lencho in God. First, he laughed at the man who wanted to have a direct correspondence with God. But after reading the letter, he was deeply moved and impressed by Lencho's faith in God. He knew that merely goodwill was not sufficient. The farmer needed financial help. So he collected a sum of 70 pesos from his employees and also contributed a part of his salary and sent the money to Lencho. So that was all about the two most important characters of this story, a letter to God. So that's all for now. Do read the text. Thank you so much for watching the video.